Hey, welcome to the screencast of Technology Tools in Education and Integrating QR Codes into the Classroom. That's right, we're going to take a few moments to look back and help you realize that as you look at your students, your kids, yourself, the QR codes are being more frequently used than what you think. From Snapchat codes to those little squares that you see on flyers or on that new laptop or printer you just purchased. QR codes are really all around us, and can we as educators really take advantage of this tool and utilize it in the classroom? This session is going to describe exactly what a QR code is, how to create one, and then what the heck do I do with it? So when you guys finish up this session, you're going to be able to create a QR code, integrate them into your classroom, maximize their use with instructional videos, attendance evaluations, and truly include more student engagement and create that active classroom that we're really making sure that we can take a look at. So let's get started. So in here, we're going to take a look at a couple things that I have found personally to help us out in looking at QR codes. So we're going to cover what they are, how to create QR codes, how to read QR codes, and truly what you need to work with them. Because really, those things are going to be useless if they're not met with a purpose in education, you know. So we have to know how to utilize these. So we're going to demonstrate how to use QR codes with some Google Forms, and then how to gather some data that one can obtain inside of Google Sheets. And as always, there will be some form of resistance to utilizing QR codes. You know, as a result, we're going to see how UR shorteners can be utilized to help achieve the same result that we have with the QR code. But we will also then be able to look at the way that we can use some extensions and add-ons inside Google Forms, Sheets, Docs, and even Google Chrome to help us out. Hopefully, what you will find as we go through here is that QR codes really are embracing what the heck is going on inside that brain. We're trying to make things work just a little bit different and a little bit better together. So just a nice little thing here. If we're going through all this stuff, there are no conflicts of interest. Anything that I am promoting, or really not promoting, I'm actually talking to you about tools that I have used, and as a result, I have found that they work well for me. So I'm not promoting one product over another. I'm just simply telling you what I have used before and hopefully provide you with some reasons as to why I like them. As we go through the rest of today, or through the rest of whenever you're watching this, you can check out the HyperDoc on this presentation. Yes, that's right. One of the things to help get into an active classroom is looking at HyperDocs. And that'll be a whole nother session I think we can talk about, but including HyperDocs to help you as the teacher, as that educator, to be able to take a look at this information, give you a nice little description. If there's something that I find that I need to update, I can do this inside of a Google Doc, which is now your handout. And as a result, you would be able to go ahead and utilize this information anytime you need to. So if you need to stop right here, stop the video. You can scan that QR code right here with your phone. You can also type in that link, and once you get into that link, those are all going to be interactive codes that you may find inside that HyperDoc. So what is it that we're taking a look at? I mean, if you take a look around and you see exactly where QR codes are, you know, have you truly tried them? QR codes initially never really seemed to take off like the way many had hoped. But thanks to different versions of QR codes, they are appearing in more places like this. So what is it that is making the newer QR codes work just a little bit different? Well, I'm going to say that it's probably this. You know, Snapchat is one social application that many of our students have utilized. Many of their parents are utilizing. And in fact, I would venture to say many of us are utilizing Snapchat in different ways. But within the Snapchat application is the ability to be able to scan with another friend so that you can actually hook up with them as a friend and connect with them as part of their account. And if you're familiar with this, there's also 3 different ways in which people can connect with Snapchat. And this is spectacular when you're trying to look at things as a friend standpoint. You know, is this something that you're going to encourage your students to do over time? Because let's face it, folks, they're going to communicate with each other. And isn't that what we want them to do? To be able to communicate with each other? So maybe we should step back, and if they use these devices, maybe we should encourage them to use them in a responsible manner. The problem, though, is we often just let that go. We just, you're not going to be able to do it because, you know, you could bully somebody, and we don't want you to be able to do that. But you know what, folks? We have to teach them how to do these things. So, again, a time and a subject for another, sounds like another screencast to me. Anyway, so we take a look at what the heck is a QR code. And that, you know, you can take a look at this and realize that really it's similar to what a barcode is that you may find in a school, or I'm sorry, inside of a store, not in a school yet. But it really is something that can contain a whole lot more information than what a barcode can. And in some cases, you're talking well over 4,000 different characters that can go into a QR code. And, you know, it really came out in 1994 by Denso Wave. This was a subsidiary of Toyota. And the idea behind this was that manufacturing, if there was somebody who was having difficulty looking at how to run a machine or how to operate a machine, one of the things they would do is scan this device. They would scan that QR code and it would give them instructions on how to utilize it. So it was just-in-time technology, just-in-time education, and those are a lot of the same things that we're using again today. So what is it that you can really think of as to what you can actually think of in utilizing a QR code? Well, pretty much it is anything that you can possibly think of. Maybe it's a back channeling during the class where you're setting up a back channel. Could you use something like a Twitter hashtag? Could you utilize other programs? YoTeach is another one that has just come out, or actually has been around for a while, but it's kind of replacing some of the other ones that may have, today's meet actually went away. So YoTeach is something you can take a look at. What about looking at formative assessments? What about utilizing checklists maybe when somebody is learning a skill? So from a chemistry teacher standpoint, are they going down through the directions that they need to and actually doing a chemistry experiment? If you're in a health class, are they going down through the procedure of maybe dissecting something? That can also be for a biology class. So you get the idea that you can look at a checklist, even if it's in math, maybe they're going through the steps in handling that. If it's in the healthcare industry, this is maybe learning about how to insert an IV or take a blood pressure on somebody. The amount of data educators can obtain from these lists allows you to adapt any lesson and really allows you to identify any weaknesses that our students may have. And it gives them then ample opportunity to become stronger. What about an attendance sheet in class? Can you create a roster in which, say in health class, you're utilizing health class or even just instituting a CPR class where you are having people institute uploading all the information. Now it's in a spreadsheet and it works a whole heck of a lot better for the teacher and the administrators behind the scene in uploading this information. You know, by nature, most people would prefer to do shortcuts than go the long way of doing anything. So really, at the end of today, you're going to be given a lot of these tools to be able to create the resources that you need. And truly, and additionally, in my HyperDoc, I'll provide you with additional resources and in ways in which how you can create these. You know, one of the first things that you would actually need in doing a lot of this stuff is to use a QR code reader. That's right, a QR code reader is going to be something that you may need to apply to your, blanket here. One of those things that you can do from a QR code reader standpoint is how are you going to scan the QR codes? Now, folks, there is great news. First off, if you are an iPhone user, if you're talking about the last two versions of the iOS, has enabled us to be able to utilize this straight out of the camera app. So if you open up your camera and you scan a QR code, it should immediately open it up and tell you, here it is. And it puts a little window up at the top. You hit it and it takes you to wherever it needs to be. If you're using an Android or any other device that's not Apple, go in and take a look at these things. They are truly free. Don't pay for this stuff. Okay? They are going to give you a QR code reader, and there even is one that I have found that actually is on a desktop reader. And what I mean by that is that if you were taking a look at something that would truly just be on the desktop, and that link down here, if you type that in, it would actually work. I'll be honest and tell you that I haven't played with this a whole lot. The times that I have used it, it didn't work great. Didn't work the way that I was looking at it. But there are other programs that you can use with inside the desktop. You may have to download it, but it should enable you to utilize the webcam to scan a QR code. So maybe you have to print something out. Just some things to consider. So something like this, could you utilize this in class? Well, I'm going to tell you that right now, one of the biggest issues that I would have is, can you submit a question to me? And right now, as you're taking this, watching through this screencast, is there something you can do? Absolutely. Submit a question to me through the chat here for @TimR2715 for the Twitter feed, or you can actually scan the QR code to go into the Padlet, and actually we can get a back channel going with this. You may notice that I may have it set up for something else, but you know what? If you get into the Padlet area, great tool, works as a back channel, and some ways in which I have already used this in class, throw up this QR code. And as the students are sitting there, you can ask them to type in something that they feel is utmost important that they need to remember, so that maybe they see it on a test a little bit later on, maybe a quiz tomorrow, maybe a unit exam coming up in the next few days. They now have a study guide, things they can take a look at, and they are collaborating on it. Works great. Okay? So these are two free resources that right off the bat, hopefully you're walking away with. Use Twitter. Nothing wrong with utilizing social media to help find out what the heck is happening. And then, of course, Padlet is another one. The other thing you need to make sure that you do is when you're starting to create these, if sometimes our programs that we're utilizing just don't have the QR generating capability. So as a result, you need to create your own. Now, you can go into any browser and you can hit QR code generator, and bam, you're going to get a whole bunch of hits. Here you can just see with the QR code generator, 650,000 results. There's one that I kind of like to use, and one of the reasons why is because I can actually put it as in my Google account, and if I want to start tracking some of these QR codes as to how people are utilizing them, are they actually being utilized, it's going to tell me that. Other issues is that it also is a Chrome extension. So if I use my Google Chrome, I can put this in as an extension. And again, I'm just thinking this is probably another area in which we need to have another professional development, or maybe just a quick screencast, podcast, something like that, to help you understand exactly what you can and cannot do with Google Chrome extensions. Anyway, sorry, my mind gets going a little bit. And it's like, oh, what the heck are we talking about? Anyway, find this one to be fantastic. It gives you the ability to do some free text. If you were to scan the QR code in the upper left-hand corner that I had earlier, you will find at the beginning of this presentation, you will find that I do have information that is in there, and it was done as a free text. The other things you can do is you can actually look at a URL. So what do you mean by a URL? Well, that means that, guess what? I can put a website in there. So it may be a link to my website, or maybe to a portfolio that you've created. You can create contacts. So you can take this information, use the contacts, and guess what? Have somebody scan your information and they can put it right into their phone. It works great. You can also have direct phone numbers. What the heck can you do with a phone number and an SMS text? Well, the sky is the limit in this, folks. I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why I like both of those things is maybe you sent your students on a scavenger hunt and you need them to call somewhere. Hey, guess what? Sometimes these kids or these folks or us are already dealing with this. This is a teacher made, maybe it's a field trip, This is somebody inside of a health program, whether or not it's post-secondary, secondary, elementary. They can call. They can call a specific number or send a specific text message to somebody. Uh-oh, got another idea. Google Voice. Google Voice actually provides you, that's right, with a free phone number if you sign up for it. And you can take SMS text messages. Great thing about that is it also allows you the ability to be protected, meaning that you're keeping your privacy to yourself. So people are not always texting you all the time. So I had mentioned earlier about some issues in relationship to maybe a Google extension. So there's a couple things you can do. First thing is that if you open up your Google browser, your Chrome browser, I'm sorry, you will notice that there are 3 little dots. If you click these, you're going to get a nice little drop-down menu. Move your clicker or move your mouse down to the More Tools area, and then it's going to open up another page, and it will now come out to an extension. When you click on extensions, you're going to have the ability to see exactly what is there. You can search through the store. You can see exactly what it is maybe that you're looking for. And I got to tell you, this is something that if you're just looking to do something, looking for some additional time on your hand, I know we all have that, right? If you're looking to check something out, this is a great place to go. You never know exactly what you're going to be able to find, whether or not it's in a Google Chrome extension, or even if it's an add-on. Again, we'll talk about those a little bit later on, but an add-on with inside one of the Google features. Another program that I have used before, and I got to tell you, there's some great advantages to both of these. So you need to try these out and play with them yourselves. But one of those things is called QRStuffcom. If you go to QRStuffcom, one of the things that you can do is actually utilize any of these types of data. The difference is that the 3 locations that I have marked here with the arrows, those do require you to have a paid subscription. So I do like a lot of PDF files, but you know what? I'm not going to let that disrupt me. I can utilize a URL and send a link to my Google Drive. I can send it to my OneDrive from Microsoft. I can send it to a Dropbox. I can send it to Box. I can send it to any one of those cloud programs where somebody can now scan my QR code, go to that website, and download the information that they truly need. So you get to take a look at some different things, and I got to tell you, the imagination can run wild as to what's going on. So remember, the sky is the limit on these things. So what is it that you do need to take a look at? If you remember, I talked about attendance, and one of those things in relationship to attendance was, can you use a QR code? Absolutely. So one of these things is, if you take a look right here, this is how you can really set this up. So if I'm setting this up, I can go into this attendance. So if you were to scan this is a live form. It's going to take you into a Google Doc, or I'm sorry, a Google form. And inside that Google form, it is going to give you some wonderful information. And it's going to ask you about your name, your last name, your email address. So then this is set up so that it should actually automatically generate an email indicating that, hey, I see you, you're here, fantastic. Now, I know the answer or the question that's going to come up with this. Tim, how in the world am I going to verify that one of my students actually was here? And if they were really here, what is it that if they've signed in for somebody else? You know what? I have not yet found the perfect thing. Unless you are actually sitting in there with a whole bunch of people to verify that you know every person walking through the door, that would be the only way that you could verify that nobody is cheating. However, if they are doing this, there's a couple other things you can do. As I said, I set this up with a Google form. Various reasons why I chose to do it that way. But what if you're utilizing SurveyMonkey? If you're using SurveyMonkey, whether or not it's a free or a paid subscription, you too can put this up, and it actually then could be locked down so that it is only one time from that device. So sometimes you just got to take a look around and realize that there are awesome features that we have to deal with. One of the other questions you might ask yourself is, well, Tim, what am I going to do if somebody who comes in and they don't have the QR code scanner and they don't want to scan it? Well, let me show you exactly how we did this. So first off, created that QR code. That QR code came from a QR generator. So after that was created, you just pretty much right mouse click it. It's copy the image and you paste it into a PowerPoint slide. Then I utilized a Google shortener to that actually, if you're utilizing Google Forms, after you have gone through the form that you may see, the form actually allowed us, and by the way, let me show you the form real quick. So here's what the form looks like. So when you scan this, the QR code, this is what you end up with. Now, how did you get here? Well, after we created this, Google does allow you to take this long form here, this long URL link. It allows you to shorten it. So this would be the Google shortener. Now for me, I got to tell you, this is an awful lot of information that I got to try to type in, and I'm probably going to mess it up. So there's one other thing that you can do. You can go to bit.ly, bit.ly, and you can Google it. You can type it into a browser. And if you go to bit.ly, excuse me. So when you go to bit.ly, this is a free application for so much, of course. And, you can actually shorten it. So you can see here that it says bit.ly attendance example. And as long as they are putting in the exact information, now I got to tell you, this is also case sensitive. So I like to use the bit.ly part because it shortens it a whole heck of a lot more, and it makes it something that the students can remember, or whoever. So like you guys, if you're here and you're like, hey, I want to see whether or not this works, I swear, if you hit this, or you go in there and you type in bit.ly/attendance example, and you put in information, it will go into my Google form and we'll be able to see that. So we just talked about that. One of the things that I have used before is that there is a live view of this, and I'm not going to do it right this second. Well, actually, maybe I will. So if we went in here to this live, what we would be able to see is that I am now going to open this up. You can see that it's taken me to my attendance form, and these are a lot of people that I may have just, put in here a little bit and just, kind of messed around with. So I am trying, it's messing around with me right now. Okay, so what I want to do is be able to come in here, and I can now go to my form, and I'm going to go, and we're going to put in here my first name, which is going to be hello, and my last name is going to be screencast. And I'm also then going to put an email address in here, and I'm going to hit submit. And now what you should be able to see is that it just popped up right here. So this is what is awesome. This is what is great in relationship to doing some different things. So, you get to see it in real time, and it makes a whole heck of a lot better sense in my eyes. So let's take a look back here, and we can go in and see how we did this. I know I sound like I was rambling there. I really apologize for that. So by the way, another great resource that you might want to take a look at is Matt Miller and ditchthattextbook.com/Google Docs. He not only did I borrow this picture from his site, it is also a great website to go take a look at, and he has some presentations that you can take a look at to see how to really get out of that textbook. Hey, you know what, folks? If the students aren't using them, why are we forcing them to? And quite frankly, a time for another subject matter later on is if you're giving them all of the information inside of your presentations and then handing them the presentations, wonder why they're not going to read the textbook. That's because they don't find use in it. So we're giving them that information. Anyway, I digress. So let's go back and take a look and say, yeah, we have to go in here and take a look at forms. And when you go in there and you take a look at forms, one of the areas that you can find this is if you went in under new. Now, when I did these screen captures, things had updated already, so it may not look exactly the same, but it's going to be pretty darn similar. If you went in under new and you scrolled all the way down to more, go over to Google Forms, and when you do that, it's actually going to give us an example of how we could do that. Now, just for time's sake, I'm not going to show you exactly how to do that, but guess what? Inside that presentation, or I'm sorry, inside that handout is actually a nice little video clip as to how I did this. So feel free to go ahead to the YouTube link down here at the bottom, which I just tried to announce, and that becomes a little bit difficult with all those little letters. Or you can go all the way back to where I had the handouts, and I'll pop that QR code up later. And when you do that, it will take you through the video feature here to show you how you can actually set that up. And by the way, I also give you the ability where you can pull up that information. So that's great. You know, if you went in and here is the Google Form QR code example. It takes me about 5 minutes to set this sucker up. And you can see that when I went to share, I was able to get the link. I copy it, and it is ready to go. I can embed it in a QR code. I can put it in a bit.ly link. I can even just keep it like this and just throw it at the bottom of my slides. By the way, I did find that it is spectacular to be able to do that at the bottom of a handout. This way, if people are looking at it from a PDF standpoint, and this is one of the reasons why I like HyperDocs, because you have the ability that when people are viewing this, that all the links are active. Hence the reason why they call it a HyperDoc. That's right. By the way, I did not create that myself. Go ahead and Google it. Wonderful books that are out there to find out exactly what the heck HyperDocs are all about. Okay, so some ways in which I have used it. And I've told many people that although I'm giving you examples of how I have used it in my classroom, I'm also giving you ideas that hopefully you could take into your classroom. In this case, it doesn't matter whether or not you're dealing with preschool, elementary, middle school, high school, you're dealing with post-secondary education from a vocational technical standpoint, or you're dealing with a college or university. These things have their place everywhere. So I like to use, one of them is in practice and just-in-time education. So one of the problems that I have is that, you know, I have adults that might be in my classroom, and then I have those kiddos that come in and they're about, 16 years old. They're still in high school, kind of one of those that pedagogy, andragogy. I'm not sure which way I'm supposed to go with them, but guess what? They're human beings, so I'm going to help teach them. Well, if I allow some instruction to occur, and I allow that instruction to occur within each group, I might be able to take a skill and allow them to help review it. By the way, this is not something that I am doing on the first-time basis. This is an additional resource. So what can they do? Well, this is a TIM-approved, what I like to call, a TIM-approved link. So they scan this link and it takes them to a YouTube video or whatever resource that I have put together, and it allows them to look at this information from a different standpoint. So an example on this one is walking that individual through a practical exam that they're going to be expected to perform. So it gives them an idea as to exactly how they are to perform this. I could change this around and have another QR code already picked out and utilize this in the classroom to say, here's how we did something. Here's how we did a skill. I've used the example before. Go to YouTube and type in World War II. It's amazing what you find in there. So this can be used all over the place. And really, it is a nice little gap filler. And what are students going to do with this stuff? Give it to them as a hyperlink. Give it to them as a HyperDoc. Give it to them in a handout in which they can scan these codes in the number one thing that they're doing in the outside the classroom. That is looking at their phone. Folks, even when they're at home, guess what they're doing? They're watching television. They're binge watching something on Netflix, and they have their phone and they're looking at stuff. Wonder what they would do if they had this handout sitting beside them and they took a look at it. I mean, I know my kiddos, so I know exactly what they do. By the way, when I refer to my kiddos, I'm talking about my kids. My own kids will be more than happy to put a set of headphones on, and they have one headphone or one earbud out. They're listening to whatever's on television, and then they're also trying to watch something that is on their screen. Now, you know darn well something's getting tuned out. My guess is, when they're looking at the screen on their phone, they're tuning out whatever's in Netflix. Just an idea. So one of the other things I have utilized is Google Forms. And I've spoken with some instructors within the School of Nursing and also Allied Health. at Memorial Medical Center, you know, most of the people that are watching this. And one of the things that I had mentioned is, you know, can you utilize forms to be able to do different things? Well, the answer is absolutely. You might be able to track this stuff. So to be able to track this stuff, you can go ahead and go in and have the student scan this form. You have the evaluator put their name in. You put in the student's name, and now they are going to get points for what they did or what they did not do. This is off of a formal checklist that the students are going to have available to them either in a textbook, a workbook, some type of handout that they've already had. And guess what? Here's what you get to see on the other end. This is what you get to see. You get to see where they have missed things. You get to see whether or not you need to be able to go down and make adjustments in your class. You know, if you say it's one and done and that's it, then the students are not learning. That's what we're there for. If it was a one and done, they should just read the book and move on and go take the test. They rely on us as that subject matter expert to help guide them down the pathway of learning something. And this is really what we're taking a look at. Now, one of the problems that I will tell you that we have run into, and I recognize this after we gave this in person, is that recently these sites have been blocked from our system. However, they are still accessible on guest Wi-Fi. So that means there is a little workaround with it, and you may have to get this information a little bit different way. And again, because some changes are coming within the building, and we're trying to see whether or not we can bypass this in a certain way. But, you know, there's other ways that we can take a look at it if it doesn't work. We always have some options that are out there. You know, a number of years ago, I was able, or I'm sorry, not a number of years ago, a couple months ago, I was able to take a look at some strategies for monitoring. And one of those things is dealing with self-assessment and peer assessment. And, you know, if you go back and look at this, we're asking the evaluator's name. Notice that it doesn't say that it has to be the instructor. That's why we put in there evaluator, because it's great. When people are learning, they're collaborating together. It doesn't matter what age they're at. You can allow them to be able to do this. By the way, if they're better at the technology than you are, there's nothing wrong with that. Let them help you. I can recall being in a classroom in which I didn't understand how to turn something on. It was the first time I was ever in a classroom at another location. And guess what? I had students coming up and showing me exactly how to fix these things because I looked at them as being part of my peer. They were trying to teach me how to do something. And guess what? It worked because I got it the next time. I mentioned earlier, and I know a lot of people do CPR. And if they're doing CPR, this may be something that they do either in high school, or they may be doing something in relationship to getting kids ready to go visit in a career fair or something like that. They're going to get credit for it. You know, this is just an example of how we took something that is required, put it into a Google form, created a QR code. I use this over and over again when I teach CPR to the general public, or I use it in any of my classes that I need to get a roster into. This has a lot of my detailed information, and you can see here that I've been using it for a while, but it gives me the information, and you will also then notice that I have an email that is sent from here. So every time a student submits the information in a roster, they get the email back. Two reasons for that. Number one, it verifies that they have it. I don't have to do as much work afterwards trying to eliminate the duplicated emails. And second of all, if they didn't get the email, that means they probably put in the wrong email address. And I know that never happens. So just some ideas of things that you can take a look at and manipulate. Other things I've utilized these for, and man, I can think of this. I have a friend who's a gym teacher. And I told him before, I said, you know, Justin, I bet you could utilize a QR code anywhere in your gym class. And you send these kids on a scavenger hunt. And when they find something like this, in this case, it's a doll. And they find this doll, they scan it and tells them what to do. Next thing you know, these kids are doing 10 push-ups, 5 push-ups, whatever it is. They're doing jumping jacks, you know, and it sends them somewhere else. So they get another clue, but they have to do something. Okay? You will also notice that one of the things I did here was that These were set up in a very large room on 2 floors of our school one night, and I utilized this thing here. It's called ZipGrade. And the students, when they scanned this, it took them to a question in which they had to identify A, B, C, D, or E, and they colored them in. When they were done with this, they brought it back into the classroom. I used ZipGrade to grade it right off of my phone, and I was able to give them a grade for the activity. So this was part of the assessment. And the great thing about it is that it gave me a breakdown. It gave me an item analysis, and I was able to identify where the problems were. We recreated some things, and we fixed it, and the next time they had a different version, they did much, much better. So one of the things that, and again, geared more for healthcare, but you know what? If you're dealing with, I can just see so many things coming here. If you're dealing with, I do with this with patient assessment. So I call it speed dating. And not just me, but other people have identified it that way. If you call it a speed dating, this is you one-on-one with somebody who's sitting across from you. And one of the things that you do is you have one person scan the QR code and they read this information. So they read this information and now they know how to act something out. The other person has to ask the questions, and it enables them to try to figure out all of this information. Now, this is in relationship to things that they've already learned in class. They're now applying the information that they've had. And then we come back into the classroom and we talk about it. Where else could you take a look at this? This may be something in relationship to interviewing skills. This is getting people to socialize, and oftentimes they don't have starters to take a look at. Well, to help reduce some of the, quote, cheating, you can change some of this stuff just by putting it into a QR code. You know, the imagination, it's a wonderful thing. Sometimes it's pretty scary, but it can be it can be a wonderful thing. As I had mentioned earlier, and let me go back here, you will notice here it says 4,000 characters. Guess what? No shocker there. 4,000 characters, talked about that earlier, and you can put that in here with inside the free text. Some other things that I have taken a look at, one of the problems, and I love this program, I'm so upset that it's gone. One of the programs that I used to like to use a lot was called Ping Pong. And it's gone, and I don't know why. Anyway, when you go into another one, this is called DirectPoll. DirectPoll.com is free. It doesn't require you to download anything. And it gives you the QR code itself. And so if I give a presentation, and particularly I may give things that are case-based, and I need them to interact with the class, this is how we get those discussion points going. Remember that they can read anything that I put into a slide. I want them to be there for me to be able to learn and guide the conversation as to what's happening. So in this case, to get them to interact in the class, they know that they need to have some type of internet browser, they need to have a smartphone or a computer. And guess what? There's a couple ways of doing this. And they can scan this QR code, which is taking them to this link right here, and then they go and answer the question. And the great news about it is that this is all free, and it also is the same link for the rest of that presentation. So if you change it up and you have a couple of them, that's not a problem. Now, I will tell you there is a downside to it. One of the downsides to DirectPoll is that if you don't pay attention to your email, every 30 days, this thing is going to tell you, here's a warning, if you don't go in and save this, it's going to be gone forever, and it just deletes it. So if you're okay with something like that, a one and done, not a big problem. However, if you're taking a look and you're looking for additional information, and you have less than about 25 or 30 people in your classroom, you might want to take a look at something like polleverywhere.com. Might give you an idea. This is kind of one of those things that can help replace some clickers. So other things that you may be able to do, you find out about a bunch of questions, you set a QR code for each question, and then you put those QR codes around your school, and then you have the students find and answer the questions. And this is almost like that scavenger hunt. What is it that they're taking a look at? Just recently we had Digital Citizenship Week, and what is it that we got our students to do? Oh, we forbid them from using technology in the classroom, from text messaging and using stuff on cell phones and going on social media. We always tell them what they can't do, but do we ever give them the opportunity to show what they can do? And this may be one of those things you can take a look at. Again, look at this QR code generator, and you can look at multiple reasons as to why you can have them do it. Again, I had mentioned earlier, you can have them send you a text message. They can send you a message through Skype. You know, you could set up a Skype account for your classroom and have them send it in. What about a Google Hangout? You can also do one of those. So various things you can do. Again, you know, these things are just running around in my head as I'm talking about this. So one of the things I do like a lot is microlearning. And microlearning is really one of those things that we see that probably by 2025, millennials are probably going to make up about 75% of the workforce. The average attention span of those millennials is about 90 seconds. So the idea of micro-learning resources is to assign one learning objective per asset. So you can use a video. And really in this case, you know, for here, I've had a lot of ums and ahs and stuff like that. But, you know, this is for us. This is something that I hope you can go back and take a look at. But production quality is going to matter in this case. And, you know, for me, this is a one and done. I'm doing this screencast. It's done. And you know what? After a while, it's going to be deleted off of where I post it. Right now, I'm looking at YouTube. But anyway, get these accounts. Find out exactly what these things can do. And you don't have to post it to YouTube. Create the video, put it in a Google Drive, and send a link to somebody. You know, these things are fantastic. There's a lot of resources. And by the way, not one of these things that I am displaying up here costs you money. None of them. They're all related to some form of microlearning. And really, a lot of these videos should be able to take place in about 4 minutes. Once you get beyond 15, we start running into a problem. And as I'm looking at my timer, as I'm doing a screencast, I recognize that hopefully you've stopped this every once in a while, because it can get quite boring. So anyway, check out the HyperDoc on this presentation. There's the QR code you can find. Don't forget, you could utilize the bit.ly link, the http://bit.ly/TechToolsQR. Remember, the QR is going to be capitalized. And of course, as always, these things are always going to be, oh, and I forgot what it's called. Oh, case sensitive. That's it. You know, so the meaning of learning. Take a minute and take a look at that and realize that, you know what, this is assessment for learning. Is there some way that we can do an assessment for learning? I just had a great friend of mine actually do a podcast. Actually, two friends of mine did podcasts in relationship to utilizing assessments as a way in which you can learn. And guess what? From the from the pedagogy standpoint and from the adult standpoint, they've been able to identify that this thing does work. By the way, what I mean by assessment for learning is not giving them 50 question exams and then trying to see what they learn. We're talking 5, 10-point exams, learning from them, moving forward, trying to find a different way in which you know, what is it that they got, that they did well, what is it that they did bad. There are multiple ways in which we can take a look at those things. Okay? So, again, I think that's probably a time for another time and place that we can take a look at things. Here's a couple resources or references that I used as we were going through here. Keep in mind that QR codes, there are real books for it, and we can take a look at those anywhere across the line. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and send me an email at treitz@conemaugh.org. Also, you can get a hold of me. I believe my contact information is inside that HyperDoc as well. So go ahead into the http://bit.ly/TechToolsQR, and you'll be able to take a look at that. Have a great one.